So officially, hello everyone. My name is Alexandra Tsvetkova, and together with Georgina Humphreys, we are going to talk about the TREIO project today, some of our outcomes and tools that we have developed for professionals working in the EIO domain. But also, we are going to share some information about EU initiatives that are correlated to our work and the tools that we are to talk about. So this is the agenda for the day. First, what are the ongoing digitalization developments in the field of EIO and how they correlate to our work, what the TREIO project is about. And then for Georgina and then me, we are going to present two of the most important tools for our professionals. First is the TREIO eLearning course, and the information that it contains on with regards to business, legal aspect, but also the operational aspects on how to work with the eEDES system that is developed specifically for the purposes of EIO exchanges. And then I will show you how we have upgraded, in a way, the system for training purposes. And at the very end, there will be time for your questions or comments, and we will also explain to you how you can gain access to these tools. You're free to ask your question by raising a hand or by putting your comments in the chat. And then either me or Georgina will read the comments out loud and proceed with answering. So let's first start with where does the TREIO project stand and how the different initiatives relate to our work. You might be aware that there are a number of ongoing initiatives in the judicial cooperation domain with regards to its digitalization. And they all cover different aspects related to electronic exchange of information in cross-border transactions and exchange of evidence. In practice, it all started in 2010 when a member state's project was initiated to design a secure communication channel for data exchange between judicial authorities. And when the project was over in 2016, there was such a channel, and this is what we know today as the eCodex system. The success of that experiment brought different spin-off projects on different use cases in judicial cooperation, but also gained trust among the different member states, and they gradually joined the Codex infrastructure. The Commission also recognized the value of such an infrastructure, such a secure communication channel between the judicial authorities. And after several years of negotiations, a special regulation was adopted in 2022, and it defined the different roles, responsibilities, and the overall legal framework of eCodex, of the eCodex system, making it thus the EU communication infrastructure for such exchanges. Again, back in 2016, recognizing the value of the eCodex system, the Commission decided to experiment developing a common solution for the member states to exchange documents and data for specific judicial cooperation instruments. This is the eEDES digital exchange system that later became known as reference implementation software. And the Commission first experimented exactly with digital exchange of European investigation orders, mutual legal assistance forms, and interception of telecommunication notifications, considering how pertinent the need for such exchanges was at the time, with the EIO directive applying from 2017. Unfortunately, the COVID-19 period led to a number of delays, both on the Commission side and the member states launching the system. And it was finally launched in May 2022. And to date, there are 11 member states, you can see them on the screen, that have currently joined the platform in a piloting mode. This means that there are at least a couple of competent authorities in that respective member state where the eEDES system is deployed, and they're currently exchanging eEDES. They're currently exchanging messages over the eEDES. However, none of these member states currently deploy the system nationwide. There are different modalities of how the system is deployed. In some member states that use it, it is run as a separate system, completely independently from the existing case management systems. In other member states, they are integrated. However, you see that the number of member states is rather low, and this is due to the fact that the member states are still considering different strategies on how to approach this integration. We know for at least 5 or 6 member states that are launching the system pretty soon. They're currently in their final stages, while the rest are still exploring their different options and strategies and are expected to launch in the next 12 to 18 months. So this is the technical side of all these initiatives. Of course, as usual, there is the legal one. And the most important one that I want to discuss today is the regulation on the digitalization of judicial cooperation and access to justice in cross-border civil, commercial, and criminal cases that was adopted in December 2023. It's already in force, but it applies from 1st of May 2025. This regulation provides for new rules, unifying the rules in the context of video conferencing or other distance communication technologies in oral hearings, regarding the electronic communication between natural legal persons or their representatives and competent authorities, regarding the recognition of documents with electronic signature or seals in the judicial domain, which was not present until recently. And last but not least, the payment of fees through electronic means in the judicial cooperation domain. However, what is more important from judicial cooperation instruments point of view is that this regulation also amends 8 different legislative acts in judicial cooperation and establish the need for electronic communication when implementing 24 legislative instruments in the field of judicial cooperation. And EIO is among these 24 legislative instruments. So the use of the codex system being the secure communication channel for exchange of data and documents between the judicial authorities will become mandatory for each of these tools via a gradual approach. The regulation also gives the option for the member states to use the reference implementation software, the system that I've already mentioned, the eEDES digital exchange system, by all the member states, but they are also free to opt for a national solution if they find it more suitable. This is just an option, while the use of eCodex is mandatory. Now, considering we are talking about 24 different legislative instruments, digitalizing them in one go is quite a difficult exercise. And this is why we have the eEDES roadmap that establishes a gradual digitalization approach. And these processes that are established by the regulation will take place starting from 2025 to 2031. The first instruments that will start to mandatorily use the codex system as the official secure communication channel are the service of documents and taking of evidence for civil and commercial cases. And then over time, different instruments will be introduced. Now, with regards to the European investigation order, you can see it here in the very first batch of legislative instruments that are to be digitalized under the regulation. So from 2028, the digital exchange of forms and communication messages for this instrument will become mandatory for all member states. As already mentioned, the member states can opt for using the eEDES system or decide to go with a national solution. Now I'm going to present you a bit of a technical slide, but this is just to align ourselves in the understanding of how this communication goes. So imagine that this is your competent authority, and it has adopted the reference implementation software for EIO exchange purposes. The reference implementation software communicates via an eCodex communication point to the whole network. And then on the other side, in the other member states, there is another communication point of eCodex linked to the reference implementation system. And there is another professional like yourself that is working on this reference implementation. Now, you don't need to bother yourself with the technical details here on the overall communication system to system, because the most important thing is to remember that this is really a secure channel that is designed for judicial purposes. So there are a lot of efforts put both from member states and the respective European agencies into maintaining, first creating and then maintaining this channel to be designed in such a way to serve judicial cooperation purposes. What's important for this webinar is how the reference implementation system looks like. So it's this instance is exactly the same for every competent authority and every member state that uses the reference implementation. The overall framework and the main functionalities with regard to signing documents, automated translation, the user interface, and so all these common details will remain the same. And every time when the system is upgraded for a new judicial cooperation instrument, it will just appear as another option to use from professional side. The things that will change, of course, are the forms, the type of messages, and all these operational and legal requirements that come from the respective legislative acts. But otherwise, from a system point of view, the main features will remain the same. One important aspect of the system, it is available in all the European languages. You can switch from one language to another on how the system looks and feels, depending on what you feel comfortable to work with. It also provides automated translation of the filled-in forms or separate fields. Now, the automated translation is just an option. It does not substitute the official translation that is required by the EIO directive or any other judicial cooperation instrument. It does not substitute the need to send your EIOs in the respective language recognized by the receiving side. But it could help a lot in cases of urgency or for purely operational purposes when you try to quickly understand what the other side had written. So this is another moment of flexibility. Now, these are the most important developments that take place nowadays. And now I would like to talk about a bit the TREIO project and where does the TREIO project stand in all these developments. The project itself was designed in 2019, 2020. And back then we saw all these developments coming or in development. And we thought of two specific needs. One was how to support the member states aligning their practices with regards to the EIO implementation, considering the still existing differences when implementing the EIO directive. And the other point was, okay, we are to have this eEDES system, but then the member states would require training on it. And considering the system is common for all member states, we also need an approach towards a common training. This is how the project started, and what we first focused on was to develop person-to-person training framework with training materials that could suit the purposes for different audiences and different stages of adoption of the system. So the training materials themselves cover legal aspects, business side, the business side with regard to the workflow of the EIO, but also guidelines on how to use the eEDES system, going through the different stages of issuing or receiving an EIO. All these materials are translated in 16 different languages on top of the original set in English. And once developed, we've started working with competent authorities across Europe that were interested in launching eEDES, had already launched eEDES, but did not sufficiently train their users, or just wanted to familiarize the working groups dealing with the system on all these aspects. We performed a number of train-the-trainer activities. We have also performed different online trainings in different modalities and a number of awareness activities. I have seen some of your names and I met some of you participating today in person in these activities. So I'm really happy that this communication still goes on. However, we also saw that considering the slow adoption of the eEDES system and the different level of readiness of the member states in this regard, all these measures are related to person-to-person trainings are not sufficient for our work. And this is why we developed an e-learning course that aims to fill the gaps for professionals that are quite experienced in the EIO exchanges, but does not know the system, the eEDES system, or how to work with it. But also the learning course in a different modality serves the purposes for professionals who are new to the job or have not sufficient experience with EIO. And on top of that, we also developed the TREIO eEDES simulator, which is an exact replica of the original system provided by the Commission. But we have built on top of it some specific training-related functionalities that could support a self-paced learning process, imitating the feedback coming from the receiving side or the issuing side, depending on where you stand in the process. And now we are at the very final stages of the project, where we are developing our toolkit, consisting of different sets of materials and guidelines, depending on the audience they aim to. Now, this event ends, there will be a certain set of materials for professionals like you, judges and prosecutors who are directly involved in the EIO exchange. But we are also producing sets of tools and materials for the purposes of trainers who are interested to provide a training on eEDES or on EIO and the use of eEDES for EIO exchanges on national level. And we also are preparing a set of instruments and documents that are dedicated to competent authorities. Should the competent authorities decide to adopt the TREIO approach and start implementing in future the eEDES system with the support of some of our tools. So these are the very basics of where we are at the moment. And I'm going to give the word to Georgina now, that is to present the e-learning course that we have developed and the different modalities there are for professionals.
Thank you, Alex. So yes, as Alex has mentioned, I will cover some aspects on the e-learning course and specifically related to the TREIO eEDES simulator in this regard as well. So let's have a look. So we had several aims and activities, and the TREIO Online Training consists of 3 key things, which is an e-learning platform to house the training, the self-paced training itself, so a package of content material that can be worked through, and select language versions. And then we have to complement, as Alex has mentioned, the TREIO eEDES simulator, which offers a space for real-time practicing on how to use eEDES without necessarily having eEDES available to you or using the Commission's system. So all of these together provide the TREIO online training and a tool package for professionals to use in the awareness raising in terms of EIO and eEDES. We have several uses and use cases for the TREIO training package, and we have actually two packages. We have a full package and an eEDES package. Now, the full package contains everything related to the EIO directive, EIO form, and eEDES. And the eEDES package contains information on how to use eEDES in the EIO workflow. But we've also considered the fact that we might be able to provide a refresher training for professionals. So where maybe practitioners are either instructed or can self-evaluate that they need to acquire more knowledge or refresh their memory on specific aspects related to the EIO and eEDES, then the full package could be used to essentially cherry pick or select topics which are ones to recall memory or refer to or revise or practice over. So we have three use cases. We feel that there are several benefits to the TREIO online training. Foremost, the increased awareness of the EIO directive, EIO form, and eEDES and its use and benefits. And the training focuses on a user-centered learning and active learning approaches where the professional has responsibility for their own learning. And this is good for the fact that it allows flexibility and accessibility for professionals. There is no instructor required, so it is self-paced, meaning the professionals can control their study time. We're aware that you maybe don't have a week to spend training, but you might have a few hours here and a few hours there, or you might have dedicated time where you can partake in some of the training and pick the course which is suitable for your previous awareness. Alex, could you move? Thank you very much. We have several aims and objectives, and still do, to be honest. We aim for a structured knowledge of the EIO directive and EIO procedures. Professionals need to be able to identify and investigate measures and be aware of the typical difficulties and how to overcome those difficulties in the application of the EIO. Need to be able to identify the procedures for transmission and receipt of an EIO and also be able to use the eEDES platform effectively for EIOs and other forms, etc. So by the end of the training, we hope that professionals have a well-rounded knowledge of all things EIO, whether it be legal, business, workflow, or eEDES related. The e-learning, as I have mentioned already, it's online, self-paced. The two packages, the full package takes up to a week, and the eEDES package 2 to 3 days. That said, they might not take you that long, but it depends on what time you have available to spare during a day to be able to go through the content. We have a master copy in English and select language versions, and we have targeted multiple stakeholders. So this course is meant to be for all professionals, whether you be a judge, a prosecutor, administrator, clerk, and anything in between. So as long as you're handling EIOs and eEDES, then this training is designed for everyone in the audience. And the training consists of 5 modules. Each of the packages has 5 modules, but the eEDES package has slightly fewer lessons in each of those modules. We have take-home tasks, and there are just 3 bullet points on the screen there, but I will come to the exercises in a little bit. And then we have the use of the TREIO eEDES simulator as the thread through all of the modules and all of the tasks that are embedded in the course. We have various content in the course. As I've mentioned, it focuses on the legal side, the business side, and the practical use of eEDES. So we have a collection of theory and practice. We have visual aids, we have some videos, some demonstrations and tutorials, some quizzes, we have some exercises, and then we have an exam at the end, and also the simulations which are embedded in the course, but also the use of the TREIO eEDES simulator. And we'll just flick through a couple of examples here. So we have some text-based content that you can see on the screen. We also have some graphics, and some of the graphics are even animations. Some animations are either clickable and some are in video format. We have some short videos like these where subtitles are included. There might be some sound in the short videos, but then we have longer videos, which are usually demos, which also include subtitles, but we'll come to that in a second. We have some quizzes that look as they do on the screen right now, and the exam follows a similar format for consistency and familiarity within the training itself. And then we have demonstrations, which I briefly mentioned. As you can see here, they include subtitles, and they are split into chunks. And if we take a quick look at demonstration briefly. You will see on the screen that you can just select the subtitles. At this precise moment in time, it's in English, but depending on the select language versions, they will also be available in the language chosen. We have long and short captions, depending on what we're trying to articulate to you. We have these different chunks along the bottom, which are basically sections of the video focusing on specific aspects, maybe of filling in an EIO or other bits that we would like you to be aware of. We also have additional information in some of these chunks. In this case, it's searching for a competent authority, but it's information that you should be aware of critically in that point in the video. But this example, as I said, was competent authority, but it might be on translations or other things. We also have embedded simulations. So these are slightly different to the TREIO eEDES simulator, which is its own entity, but this is embedded in the training itself. It's clickable elements within the training where you're able to walk through the example given and action it as if you were using eEDES. So we take a quick look at a simulation or example of a simulation. Here you can see that we are starting a new request, and we're actually starting a new request for an ITN. And as you will notice, you click on the elements that you would usually click on as you are in eEDES. Unfortunately, you can't enter text input into this example of a simulation, so we've done that for you. And either we have provided some information or maybe some relevant tips and tricks for you instead of an example solution. But as you can see, you walk through as you would in the eEDES system. We also have practical exercises, which I mentioned earlier. We have a minimum set, but we actually have 10 in total in the training. Each of the exercises has a scenario and a task, and we have two different versions of many of the exercises. The first version being you are given a scenario and a task, and you are given a set number of instructions. So we'll say, please follow A, B, C, D, E. And the second example is an extension question, which is where you're provided another scenario and the same task, but without guided instructions. And this is an example where you are provided no guided instructions and you're expected to log into the TREIO eEDES simulator and follow the guided instruction version, and then go to the simulator again and follow the task using your previous knowledge acquired during the guided instructions. Obviously, you can use the guided instructions in the self-evaluated version as well. And we've designed the training for all stakeholders. So we've considered multiple end users, as I mentioned earlier, and participants of the training will have access to both packages. So the full package and the eEDES package. All quizzes and exams are in the package itself, so everything is contained within, and the exercises are found not only in the training but also will be supplied outside of the training if you would just like to follow through on those with the TREIO eEDES simulator. We have also considered trainers during this e-learning as well. While I said the training is self-paced and does not require an instructor, if competent authorities decide that maybe they want to implement a trainer for the e-learning, then the trainers will have access to not only the training packages, but the storyboards, which basically outline all of the content, and the solutions to the quizzes and examinations. We have also considered further the competent authorities and their requirements maybe to adapt to national requirements or embed in their own learning management system. And therefore, we're providing all developer files, including all graphics, images, text, etc. And also a developer manual, which maps the content of all of the course and its structure within the developer files. And now I will hand over back to Alex, and she will present to you the TREIO eEDES simulator in the context of the EIO business workflow.
Thank you, Georgina. Before we proceed, we have a comment in the chat coming from a participant in one of our trainings in November 22. And the comment is that whatever we are discussing today looks exactly like some of the things that had happened during that training. And the question is, have we ever progressed in that sense? So when we first started our trainings with competent authorities back in 2022, we only performed trainer trainings and online events for professionals that were officially assigned to those trainings by their competent authorities. And the choice of the member states whether to opt for such trainings or but also who is to be trained considered the different strategies the member states had at the time on adopting eEDES. We have continued providing such trainings person-to-person ones until the very end. Our last training took place 2 weeks ago. But exactly because of these trainings, we see that, for example, some of these trainings took place back in the middle of 2022, and then the member states have not yet implemented the eEDES system. This happened in Bulgaria. This also happened with other states. And this big gap between the trainings and the actual use of the system, creating the need to proceed with other instruments as well. So from the point of view of the project as such, we have built our efforts into providing not only training materials for professionals, but also these different sets that serve the purpose for trainers that will continue working independently from us from now on. We have also provided these special sets that Georgina mentioned for competent authorities. So in reality, as of today, a competent authority could take all our tools completely for free and adjust them to their own environment. For example, if the competent authority is not interested in using our learning management system, they can just take the content and incorporate the content in their own learning management system. These were things that were not possible back in 2022. The other aspect that is quite different from then was what platform we have used for training purposes. So at the time, we provided access to the training environment of the Commission. And we worked directly with that training environment, meaning that all the accesses that we have provided for our participants were to be authorized by the Commission. And we were dependent on the availability of their training environment, meaning that in some cases, we had to delay trainings or to postpone certain sessions because the environment was not available for that day. And the environment as such did not allow for any upgrades for training purposes. So what we have discussed and reached as a decision together with the Commission is that we are going to develop this TREIO eEDES simulator that I'm going to talk about now. And we are going to use this simulator for training purposes. So it builds upon the original eEDES system, the original training environment, but it also provides features for auto-responding, and I'm going to present them now. The other value of this is that the system is run on our own servers, meaning that it's available all the time. And we are not dependent on any maintenance periods performed by the Commission. And the other thing is that we are directly distributing access to the eEDES simulator without prior authorization by the Commission. This allows us to extend the number of participants who can join the platform and who can be trained using it. And we can also we are also in a position to extend beyond the groups of professionals assigned by the competent authorities. So anyone would sign up for accessing this tool and learn how to use it. So these are the main differences, and this is why the access details that were provided to the eEDES training environment at the time are no longer working. They were shut down following quite a big reform from a technical point of view that happened in the middle of last year on the Commission side. And since July 2023, the officially distributed accounts in the older trainings that we have performed are no longer valid. So we are now issuing such access to all our former participants, along with the distribution of access to anyone new to the project who is interested to gain such. So this is just the longer version of my answer to our participant, Mr. Florea. So I will now proceed to the presentation of our version of the eEDES system, and also what is different from the original one. Now, in an ideal training, as it usually happens, you communicate with your peers, you exercise with your peers, you exercise with your trainer. So you're sitting on the one side of the system, and there is a real participant sign up with their own account on the other side of the system. And you can exchange messages and you can exchange EIOs, imitating the different stages and processes that take place in that exchange. However, when it comes to e-learning, this is a self-paced environment. So you don't have your trainee buddy with you. You need to perform all these actions by yourself. And if you play on both sides, it's a bit schizophrenic. So we have tried to support you in that process by replacing your training partner with the TREIO autoresponder. So the idea here is with all these exercises that we have developed, we have tried to give you guidelines on how to perform certain steps through the different stages of the EIO exchange. These are predefined scenarios, and every time when you enter such a predefined scenario and you perform the steps as they are prescribed in the exercises, you receive an automated response from the system as it was another participant on the other side replying to your request. Before we go into the exact exercises and how they are performed, I just want to show you how similar this whole process is to a real-time environment. So we have tried to really simulate what would happen if you are using the real eEDES system. So for purposes of the TREIO project, we have set up a real eCodex communication point that is connected to the real eCodex communication channel. However, instead of a national case management system, or instead of the eEDES reference implementation provided by the Commission, we have our own version of eEDES that is upgraded with simulation. features. Every time when one of the TREIO participants try to exchange an EIO or send some form of a message in the context of the EIO, the message goes through this real eCodex contact point. It goes to the communication channel provided by eCodex, but instead of going to a real competent authority, this message goes to the TREIO autoresponder. And this is how we simulate the exact notification and message workflow as it would be if you're communicating with a real competent authority. In the e-learning environment, these exercises are embedded in different modules and sections, depending on the context of what is discussed from a legal or business point of view. However, all these exercises could be used independently if you have sufficient knowledge and experience with EIO, and you just want to play and explore, with and explore the system on your own without being guided in an e-learning course. You can also find the user manual for using eEDES, meaning that it's the same user manual for our simulator in the e-learning environment, but the actual exercises and how you use the autoresponder in the most intuitive way is described in these precise exercises that Georgina mentioned. So we have 10 use case training scenarios. And you can see from the titles that they do try to simulate important steps during the EIO exchange. 7 of them focus on actions taken by the issuing authority, and then 3 other scenarios cover for actions taken by the executing authority. Each of these scenarios goes with the if and then behavior, meaning that all the steps that are described in the exercise needs to be performed in the exact that way. And that then, based on your actions, the autoresponder will either feed you with additional information, reject your EIO, or perform any of the other actions that are embedded in that exercise. So you are not just randomly issuing EIOs without any response. You can actually see how what happens if you issue an EIO and then you receive a request for additional information, or you issue an EIO and then it is acknowledged or rejected, and so on. As already mentioned, depending on the scenario, if you would like to issue an EIO, then you enter the TREIO eEDES simulator, assuming the role of the issuing side. And this is what you will see when you try to issue, because you will be the eEDES simulator. However, in order to send the EIO and receive the proper response, you should not send it to an executive state like the Netherlands or Portugal. You need to send it to the TREIO autoresponder that is at the very bottom of the list. And then the autoresponder playing the role of the executing state will feed you back with information. Vice versa, if you want to experiment with a scenario that is related to executing EIOs, then you enter the TREIO eEDES simulator, assuming the role of the executing state. However, in order to reply to a EIO, you need to first receive it. And then you can request to receive an EIO from the TREIO autoresponder, playing the role of the issuing side state at the moment. And then based on the scenario that you would like to implement, you order a different type of EIO. So, as I said in the very beginning, each of you will receive complimentary access to the eEDES simulator following the registration for this webinar. And how this will all play out. Let me just move to my browser so you can see how the system feels and look. Each of you, as I said, will receive a username and email. You sign up with those username and email, and when you sign in, let's try again. Okay, and when you sign in, you enter the exact replica of the eEDES system that the Commission provides to all member states. The only way to recognize that this is not the original system is this little logo here saying that you are in the eEDES TREIO eEDES simulator. Your username will appear here, and then you will see through your profile the different roles that are assigned to you. In the real life, your competent authority will provide you with access rights relating to your role. So you can be the author of the EIO, you can be the signer of the EIO, you can be just a reviewer or just a sender. Or you can, of course, play more than one role. For the purposes of the eEDES simulator and going through this type of self-paced training, we have provided you with all possible roles in the system so you can explore the different modalities. Then you can change the language of the system. So because we just discussed the Romanian example and the trainings that we had here, you can switch to Romanian. But since I don't speak Romanian, I would prefer to stay in English, of course. Then the dashboard and all the features remain exactly the same as with the original system. You can start a new request, you can select what type of new request you would like, and then you type the subject of your request. Let's try with testing with session 6 audience. Request for bank data. Let's simplify it. And then you initiate an EIO. I'm not going to go through all the sections. This is not a training about EIO. This is just to show you how the simulator feels and look. At the very beginning, when you start your request, you have the overview section where you can see who is the executing authority, what is the status of your request, who are the other professionals working on the case from your institution, what are the documents attached to this EIO exchange, and so on. This is the dashboard of your specific request, and it changes over time depending the stage that you have reached. Then you can go to filling in the actual Annex A. It mirrors the original form as it is provided by the EIO directive. However, what's different here is that certain sections are mandatory to be filled in. This is so that you cannot forget the most important information or to miss out filling in the most important information when you send your EIO. And while going from one section to the next, the status of your EIO request changes, and you can validate your answers at any stage of the process. So here with these red indications, you see that there are mandatory fields that I have not completed. So you can go to each of the section and then you need to respond to one of these mandatory fields. At every step of the way, you can perform different type of actions. So currently we're in the very beginning of the EIO exchange. So the only thing that we can do is to complete the EIO. But then every time when you go from one stage to the next, depending on the role that you play in the process, you can see different type of actions through this workflow. And I will show you how it would look like from the receiving side just in a bit. One important feature here is the event and message timeline. Here you can see all the notifications coming from the eEDES system and what's important, from the eCodex system. This means that every moment along the way, you know where exactly you stand with regards to your EIO exchange. Is it received on the other side? Is there a technical problem in receiving it? Are there any document exchange? Are there any messages sent? All this could be seen here from a chronological point of view. Now I'm going to show you one received EIO. Let me just find a good one. Okay, this is quite a simple thing, but anyway, let me find another one where we have Annex B. Yes, here. So this is an EIO that has been issued by our TREIO autoresponder. This means that the EIO was requested by the participant, and now the participant is playing the role of the executing state. And we have reached, we have progressed with the EIO exchange. So you can see here that there has been a request for additional information issued. Sorry. There is an Annex B sent, and so on. This is how the status of your case changes. And here, as I mentioned, you can see all the documents related to the exchange and all the deadlines linked to this exchange. You can explore the original Annex A that was sent to you, how you responded with Annex B. And then when you reach the event and management message timeline, you see how it changed over time. So each of these messages was successfully sent to the other side. And you know for sure that it was sent because this is the official response of the eCodex environment. There are also other features that I'm not going to go into many details, just to remind you about what I said of the workflow. So now, considering the stage that we have reached for this particular EIO, you can see how the actions that you can perform changes. And now you can perform all these actions from the position of the executing state. Also, there are some support features. For example, if you go here to the full list of received EIOs, you can explore different filters and search options so that you can minimize the search when you are looking for a particular EIO. So there are indeed a lot of things that could be explored. You have here the list of received EIOs, but you also have all the deadlines that apply to you. Just to quickly remind you what are the most urgent steps that you need to take upon, and so on and so on. So I'm not going to go into many more details. I just wanted to share with you how this simulator looks and feels. And every time when you perform an exercise and you go through the different steps of the exercises, the autoresponder reacts to whatever you do. This is why Georgina mentioned the options with instructions and without instructions. So you can first follow the option with instruction, get familiar with how the workflow goes, and then you'll explore the system on your own without using the explicit instruction of the exercises. As already said, we are going to send you access to these tools by the end of the week. However, there are also all these materials that I mentioned in the very beginning, the original training set in English, all the language translations, all the guidelines. They will all be published on the TREIO website in the toolkit section, and they will be made available gradually in the next 10 days. So once they are already there and we have reached the full capacity of that section, you'll be notified over email, so you can just go there and look with all the items that are available. You can forward the materials from today, both the recording, the presentation, to any of your colleagues that might be interested in the things that we presented or could be interested to take part in the e-learning course or to work with the simulator. you will receive access to the tools directly, but your colleagues need to request this access through the link that you see on the screen. So once they request access, it will take several days to provide it, but it will arrive in their inboxes for sure. And if there are any problems along the way, they can always write us to office@treio.eu, and we'll collaborate on getting that access. One important note that applies to both you receiving this access directly or to anyone who requests it in future. In the very beginning, you receive one and the same username and platform for using all these tools. Then for security purposes, the e-learning environment will ask you to change your password for the e-learning course, and you need to use the new password solely for entering the e-learning course. The original password will remain the same for both the eEDES simulator and the TREIO autoresponder. So this is just a note, a very operational note, but it's important, and sometimes it leads to confusion. So this is all from our side for the moment. Again, it's not a training on EIO. It was never meant to be. We just wanted to share with you all the recent developments and all the options that have opened up for you as professionals from now on. All the judges, all the prosecutors dealing with EIOs, all the court staff have direct access to our tools without going through a competent authority, without going through officially recognized authorization, and so on. So everyone can use them as many times as they want. I think we covered in our presentation most of the questions that were already listed by the professionals in the registration forms. Some that were more technical or more legal, like what is the size of the documents that we can exchange, were not explicitly mentioned in the presentation, but I can still go through these questions during the Q&A session if you are interested. You're also free to ask any further questions that you may have with regards to what you've heard today, or maybe coming from your own experience using eEDES, or trying to get familiar with the eEDES system over time. Are there any questions from the audience? Okay, I don't see any in the chat. Maybe one small remark. It's again very operational one. When you use the eEDES simulator, just note that this is a training simulation environment. So it is not meant to provide there any specific personal data or sensitive data or real case data. So just be careful when you exercise yourself playing with the system, not to put information that could be considered either sensitive or confidential in the course of the cases that you take on a day-to-day basis. So going through the comments in the registration forms. Okay, I've already explained that the platform that we use, the simulator version, is completely independent from any national implementation that may exist, or any implementation that could be provided directly by the Commission. I already commented on the number of member states that use eEDES for the moment. You have all the links. You have all the links how your colleagues may register to use these tools. I comment also on the language, on the data input, and all these operational aspects. One question that remains is about the sending of attachments that consist large amounts of information and the different formats that you can attach. So the system allows for uploading documents as well as video and audio files to a certain extent, up to 500 megabytes. And these limitations comes from the limitations of the eCodex architecture for the moment. If the files are bigger than that, there should be alternative solutions with regards to the exchange. But as far as we are aware, the Commission is also working in that direction as well. So if I managed to cover all the thoughts that you may have with regards to our presentations, we may close for today. But if you want to still explore certain options, just let us know. Raise your hand directly, put the comment in the chat. We are here to assist you today as best as possible. In any case, this is not the end of the conversation for sure. We are available over email in case you have any additional questions that you may have regarding the use of the tools, or maybe some developments related to the system. Even if we are not as a project in a position to respond directly, we'll guide you to the right person to take up on your question. We may not respond in an hour, but we'll definitely try to respond in due time. Be patient with us, as we do have a lot of correspondence coming from professionals just like yourself, considering this type of events, trainings, and the use of the tools that we have performed. So, last option to discuss anything additional? Anyone? Okay, good. So one participant is looking forward to the materials. Indeed, best way to do things is learning by doing. So I think this is a very appropriate end for today. Thank you for being here. Look out for all the materials that we are going to send you, and do stay in touch for whatever initiatives would involve the TREIO project or the tools that we have developed in future. Thank you again, and have a nice day.
Thank you.